Hello, and welcome to Friends for Life, a podcast of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod's Life Ministry. We're sharing stories and insights of real people living out God's love for the people He's created. We hope you'll stick around and be our friends for life.
Thanks so much for joining us for episode 11. I'm your host, Steph, and today I'm here with special guest, Grammy-nominated and Stellar Award-winning hip-hop artist Flame. Woo! Flame, that's a mouthful. Congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes. It's always funny hearing that stuff back. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
It's awesome. You really don't need an introduction from me, but would you, for maybe like the one or two people listening who don't know who you are, would you introduce yourself? And then you've been on a lot of LCMS podcasts lately. Maybe you could share something special with us that you haven't shared with anyone else before. So
Okay.
You have the floor.
All right, let's see. Okay. Well, my name is Flame. I'm a Christian rap artist from St. Louis, Missouri.
Woo!
And yes, go Cards. So basically, I just enjoy communicating through the art of rap music, which is, rhythm and poetry. And I also enjoy connecting the dots between the lofty ideas found in the Bible and showing how they're practical as well for our regular mundane lives. And I get to make it rhyme. I get to make it cool and swaggy. So I enjoy that. I enjoy studying theology and doctrine and counseling. So there, again, is sort of my interest in connecting the dots and helping people in practical ways. And let me see if there's something about me that I haven't shared on my LCMS podcast run. Probably the fact that I am a neat freak. So I have some unusual joy in cleaning and keeping things in order. So maybe that's why I study systematic theology, because I need the world to fit neatly in categories. Yes, there you go. Exclusive right here.
Okay, well, so I am the only one who can see you because obviously a podcast can just be listened to, but I can see your background, your room, whatever room you're in, and it does look very tidy. So I believe you, at least for that room, it looks like you're a neat freak.
Awesome.
I've also wondered, been listening to your music a lot lately and just wondering how you got the name Flame. Like, how does a person choose their rap name and where'd you get Flame from?
Yeah. So I don't have the story that's like, I changed my name upon conversion, like Saul to Paul or Abram to Abraham. I was actually always known as Flame as a non-Christian. But when I became a believer, I was reading through the book of Jeremiah, and I saw that basically he had the responsibility to say hard things that no one wanted to hear. And it got him into a lot of trouble, a lot of persecution. And he says, you know what, God, I'm not going to make mention of your name anymore. But then he makes his resolve and he says that, but your word is like a fire shot in my bones. And I thought that described my personality as a new Christian, this sort of intensity and excitement I was feeling to communicate God's heart. And so I changed the meaning in that way.
Awesome. I love that verse too. That's a great verse from Jeremiah.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool story. I mean, I think you can be proud of that for sure.
Thank you.
Flame, for a lot of people in the LCMS, you're kind of a newer name, though you have been creating music for quite some time. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into music in the first place, what your journey's been like so far, and then also, how did you end up at a Lutheran seminary in St. Louis?
Oh my goodness. Life is a journey. But so really, I grew up influenced by hip hop culture, rap music. To me, it was just the air that I would breathe. So everyone around me was a part of it in some type of way. And I enjoyed it. I love the social commentary that you would get through the music, while at the same time, the backdrop of the social ills, there was this joy that was found in the midst of things that was really appealing. It made life interesting, colorful, very vivid and fun. So I love the style of dance, the style of dress, the lingo, and the music that came from hip hop culture. So that attracted me as, just as a young kid. And then as I grew up, I wanted to contribute back that same feeling that I, benefited from as a youngin'. So I did that. I started to do music in like 5th grade, just rapping about staying in school, having fun. And then as I got a little older, I just started rapping about traditional hip hop topics, gang culture, drug culture, relationships, that kind of thing. But at 16 years old, I became a Christian. And that's when I realized that my content should match my conversion. And at that point, I just started to study my Bible, and I developed an interest in doctrine, and I wanted to teach the things that I was learning and sort of filter through my human experience through the scriptures and connect with people in that way to say, here's how I believe God intends life to make sense for us in our context. And from that point, I went on to study theology in school, which led me to Concordia Seminary eventually. I laugh because I spent 18 years in a Calvinistic circle, and I always loved Martin Luther and respected his contribution to Christianity, to Christian thoughts, to the Reformation. But the way he was handed down to me, it was like Luther got us only but so far. And then John Calvin came in and sort of saved the day. He's like the Joshua to the Moses, if you will, who led us into the promised land. That's the way I sort of understood the succession of Calvin to Luther. So when I, found out about Concordia Seminary through a friend of mine who went to a Baptist seminary, and his Baptist professor told him, hey, if you're going to continue your theological education and you're going back to St. Louis, make sure you go to Concordia Seminary. So he knew I was also interested in studying further. So he told me what his professor told him. And I said, yeah, I'll check it out. And so I went, still not processing that it was a Lutheran school. I just thought it was like a Reformation-based school. So I went to visit the campus. I'm talking with, different professors, and I'm just celebrating Calvin with them. I'm like, John Calvin is amazing. The Reformation is amazing. And I just had no idea really what I was getting myself into. And much more could be said, but that's kind of the long and short of it. Yeah.
It's so interesting to me too, because coming from a Calvinistic background, and then you said your like real passion is systematic theology because you're a neat freak and you like everything to make sense. But when I went through seminary, and of course you're a Biermanite too, you were in Bierman classes. The thing about Lutherans is that sometimes we can't make sense, and sometimes things are just left to the mystery of God. And that's just so interesting. Like, how did you reconcile that? If you like needed an answer to everything, and everything had to be in its tidy little category, I mean, how was that? That had to have been jolting to you, right? To transfer from that to Lutheran.
Yes, great insight. It was sort of a crisis, actually. So I remember on the front end, as I was studying Calvinistic thought, and the God's sovereignty was the doctrine that sort of reeled me in, because it was this idea that engulfs everything and gives you a seemingly healthy explanation to all of life. It's sort of, swallowed up in the idea that God is behind it all, and it's ultimately going to be for our good and make sense at some point, because God is good. He works all things together for the good. So the doctrine served me at one point. But then you're right. Living in adult life and the world being very gray, it's not always black and white. Though that idea sounded true, and I still believe that God is sovereign, but life doesn't play out as neatly. And, the doctrine no longer had comfort or answers for those spaces in life. And in my mind, that was it. I was pretty much exhausted with Christianity because the doctrine turned on me. God sort of became sterile and distant and cold. And, I felt like he's sovereign. I know that. Now it's sort of fatalism. He won't engage me. He won't change things on my behalf. He's mean. And so, yeah, it was just sort of mentally, emotionally, spiritually exhausting. And I was stuck. And I felt like Lutheranism broke in perfect time and helped me understand the gray, the paradox, the tension in life, while still upholding God's sovereignty, God's goodness. And it really helped me move out of that narrow focus and brought oxygen back into my soul. I was like, okay, I think I can make it.
I think I could say the same about my seminary experience a little bit. Like oxygen in my soul. Like it was so reviving. It was such a reviving experience to go to seminary and to learn all of this stuff, like drinking from a fire hose. It was, but you just wanted more. It was like I couldn't wait to wake up and go to class the next day to learn what other thing I didn't know. I mean, it was an awesome experience, and I'm glad you got that too. One question, we're gonna save this for later, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, Flame went to seminary, but he's still doing his thing. Like, you're not a pastor. And we're going to get to that because it kind of ties in, or actually really does tie into our topic today of vocation, which is another very Lutheran word. And Flame, like I said, I've been doing a lot of listening to your music lately. This morning on my way to exercise, listen to your music. Obviously, I'm really partial to your Extra Nos album, In Your Christ for You. And the track I Used to Think might really be my favorite, in part because you shout out to Dr. Bierman, but also for these words. And I'm just going to read them here. You said, if our faith justifies us and God saved and baptized us, we set our gaze outside of us, Extra Nos. And that's from Used to Think. And I think that this is an awesome way, really, to sum up Luther's doctrine of vocation. Christ has set us free that we can serve. Now, where do we look? Well, we look outside of us. We look around us. Our vocation determines for us who and how to serve in our most immediate context. I mean, this is table of duty stuff from the Small Catechism. And you also mentioned this in your track called Good Works. You drop the word vocation several times, and you make the distinction between active and passive righteousness. Active righteousness being righteousness that we live out for the benefit of our neighbor within our vocations. So, I mean, that's my quick summary of your like chock full of rich theology and super profound lyrics. But now I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Flame, how did Luther, how does a Christian define vocation?
Oh my goodness. First of all, brilliant assessment. Thank you. That is a great summary of that body of work. So for me, man, it was such a game changer. I'll just say in terms of my backdrop. So as a Calvinist thinker for 18 years, they would probably talk about vocation if they probably won't necessarily use that word, but if they do discuss something like it or good works, it's going to be couched or, placed in the category of sanctification. So when you're inside of the Calvinistic construct, sanctification is very central, and you're always looking to grow deeper in your affections for God, your motivations, the purity of your intentions before God. So there's this vertical emphasis that you're going to get from Calvinism, either the Reformed Baptist side, mostly the Reformed Baptist side, and as well in the Presbyterian side, but mostly in a Reformed Baptist expression of Calvinism. So, the way I understood and was trying to exercise my life was to do everything to God's glory. If I'm going to do rap, it has to be Christian rap because, that's the kind of rap that would make God happy. That's the kind of rap that would show him how serious and sincere I am about my faith and prove my justification, and to prove that I'm saved, that I'm a good Christian, that I care about God and I care about his things. And, though I love what I do, but that emphasis was another one of those things that became draining as you're trying to double down and triple down on doing everything for God, for God's glory, to become more and more sincere and focus more and more on loving God in some new degree, some greater measure. And you're doing so much introspection, it becomes unhealthy and toxic. And all along, you're putting more emphasis on yourself and not those around you. And then you start feeling guilty for being yourself, and then you don't feel worthy to help or serve the people around you. And then you're sort of rendered useless. So what the doctrine of vocation did for me, and really it gave me categories to think in that said, God is okay with you doing whatever you do. If you're a son, be a good son to your parents. If you're a husband, be a good husband to your wife. If you're, an artist, make art that inspires people and lifts burdens as people are doing life. Whatever area you find yourself in your on your journey as a human, God is happy about it. Your contribution is good. You're relieving stress and you're restraining evil in the world. These are all things that make God happy and that makes God happy. And these were all new ideas for me in theological terms. Of course, I would have thought those things were good, but I would have thought the goal in them was to ultimately share the gospel. So if I'm at work and I'm a physician, yeah, I'm here to do whatever physicians do, but ultimately I need to find a moment to share the gospel with them, or it wasn't a good work. It wasn't done to God's glory, right? So I'm there, but I'm divided, but the doctrine of vocation really helped me know that now I have the assurance of my salvation through what Jesus accomplished and the faith that he gave me. And as I lay hold by faith to the promise that he's given me, now I can function in the world and serve those around me at whatever capacity. And God is smiling, people benefit, and that's a good day to God.
Yeah, I quick looked up because what you said, it brought to mind. Luther has this quote. He said, "The Christian shoemaker does his duty not by putting little crosses on the shoes, but by making good shoes, because God is interested in good craftsmanship." And I mean, right away, I think of what you do. And yeah, God is interested in you making beautiful art. And you also happen to have at least this most recent album of your art reflecting the theological deep truths. But even so, like really, even so, if you made just like good rap, like just good rap that didn't mention your theology, you would still be serving your vocation in a beautiful way and fulfilling that. And that is the freedom that I think also Lutheran theology brings.
Oh my goodness.
So amen to that. And the thing that really resonated with me too is when you said it was draining, because it was a lot of looking inward, a ton of looking inward on yourself to prove that you're saved. Yeah. And in one of your tracks, you mentioned, I think, Dr. Sanchez by name, who we had in seminary.
Yes.
And then you also said it was him who pointed out, he was the same who pointed it out to me, that God doesn't need our good works, our neighbor does. Active and passive righteousness stuff, right? Christ has given us his righteousness, and that's passive righteousness. We don't do anything to deserve it. It's all grace. It's all mercy. But then this active righteousness, the stuff on the horizontal plane where we actually go out and do good works within our vocations. Yeah, like you said, like if you're a son, be a good son. If you're an artist, be a good artist. If you're a husband, be a good husband. If you're a parent, be a good parent. Vocation stuff. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Is. It's so freeing. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that brings me again to that last question we were kind of holding up in the air.
Yeah.
You're a Lutheran, you're seminary trained, but you're not a pastor. You're still hip hop artist. Yeah. So tell me, like, how is that a perfect example of living out your calling in one of your given vocations as an artist? And then why didn't you become a pastor?
Yeah. That's another thing that I've been able to benefit from with this beefy doctrine of vocation that, Luther preserved, is I've been able to take comfort in the skill set that God has given me, this interest that God has given me, and to not judge it up against, societal norms. I've been able to see, hey, I didn't ask for these talents. I didn't ask for the sets of interest that I have. Particularly, it feels like they were pretty innate. And, if that's true, it seems like that's one of the vocations that God is interested in me fulfilling. And that gave me a sense of comfort and, courage to be an artist. And there was a time where my trajectory was leading me towards the pastorate. And I'm not, ruling that out at some point. Perhaps God may have that for me, But at this point, I love that I feel the freedom and the validation knowing that in this space that I'm in right now, I'm contributing good. I'm serving others well. They're able to benefit from the time and the energy and the skill set that I've developed over the years. And that's really assuring versus feeling like I needed to take some type of, you know, monastic vows in order to prove my sincerity or go for some extra credit in the area of sanctification to show God. I'm really willing to sacrifice what I personally love to do something in the ministry. You know, there was a time where I thought that was the peak of, you know, what would make God happy. Now I realize that, you know, the pastor is doing what God has gifted him to do, what he enjoys doing, I'm sure on a large level. And what I'm doing as well, I think God equates them, maybe not in terms of, in terms of the gospel message, I think is man's highest priority. But as it relates to serving our neighbor, I think there's an equality to all of our roles. If I'm a stay-at-home mom, if I'm an artist, if I'm a pastor, I think God's interest in all of those particular roles are you doing them well? Or are you working hard? Or are you thinking of others as you're doing whatever you're doing? So it's been very freeing. And that it really helps me enjoy more of what I'm doing. It makes it funner, it's freer, and it makes me creative. I'm like, okay, well, what else can I do in the arts to paint these pictures and to make these concepts clearer so people can benefit from the things that I am?
Hmm.
Yep.
And you mentioned too that that you didn't necessarily like have to sacrifice your passions in order to serve God, and that's kind of a key part in vocation. But at the same time, your vocation, like right now, because you have several, your vocations aren't without sacrifice. I'm sure. I mean, is that correct? And in what ways, I
Yeah.
guess, do you sacrifice in your current vocations that you have?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's interesting too, because the process is very rigorous in terms of time, creative energy, research, and if I wanted to utilize that time, that energy on myself, I could easily find things to do. But, there is this sense in which I'm thinking about others as I'm producing 4 projects in one year, where some people may say, hey, let's go out and chill. And I'm saying, you know what? I really want to communicate these ideas, and they say, well, you own your own record label, just take some time off. And I'm thinking, well, if I do that, then I won't be able to get this project out in time. And I feel like what's going on in culture, what's going on in the world, we need to hear these things. So I'm constantly thinking about my listener as I approach topics, and as I assume questions that they're going to have when they hear these new ideas and concepts. So yeah, it's very much a sacrifice: time, energy, effort, research, and I enjoy it though. I actually love it. I still love it. I've been doing it for a while, but I still love it.
Well, and what I hear you saying too is like there's this balance in every Christian's life where you have these gifts and these callings as part of the body of Christ, and you in a sense follow after those. But then on the other hand, you always look to see, all right, how can these gifts and how can this current place that I'm living in, how can I serve? So there are always these two things kind of working together, and not necessarily even in tension, but really in balance of let's combine these and
Yeah.
let's look outward. And I'm really humbled to be able to hear that from you. I mean, a person who is a Grammy nominated artist. I mean, that's awesome to hear.
Thank you. Absolutely.
And I guess just a little side plug too, like going to seminary is awesome. And yeah, you don't have to go to seminary and then be a pastor. Like you could just go to seminary and be a better hip hop artist, or you can go to seminary and be a better I don't know, stay-at-home mom like I am, I guess, but whatever. I mean, it's awesome to be able to deepen your understanding so that you can better serve your neighbor.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
Flame, how did doing this deep dive into theology at the seminary change the way that you make your art?
Man. Well, one, topically, theologically, it's giving me ancient Christianity. So it's giving me something that's been tested and something that's been, proven to be reliable over time. So these truths have nurtured and carried people throughout the ages. So I've been able to unearth those things personally and then for the people in my circle. And when I'm able to pick topics particularly that I know are relevant for people's soul care. People are carrying, especially those who have listened to my music over 18 years. And I try to say these things with humility because in one sense, there's blood on my hands. If ever and I'm not recanting everything I've written over 18 years, but if ever I've put fuel on a fire for ideas that made Christianity more burdensome, made life more burdensome, I own up to that. And now I feel that through my time at Concordia Seminary, I've been able to study more broadly. I've been able to wrap my mind around theological truths that were sort of hidden from us in one tradition of the Reformation. And, I know so many influencers, pastors, lay leaders, musicians, artists who have over the years come to me in secret with some of the same burdens that I've had and some of the same struggles with, the neat, clean 5 points of Calvinism and how they eventually break down on a practical level. So for me, seminary in large part is serving them with these truths because it's like they're looking for more ground to walk on, but in their theological construct, there is no more pavement. So everyone's sort of stuck. And I get to come and lay more ground and say, hey, there's somewhere else we can go from here, and that's been one of the most rewarding things that I've experienced. Seminary presidents, pastors from other theological traditions have met with me like Nicodemus in the night and have been like, thank you so much for extra notes, for Christ for you. I have never in all of my years of theological training been exposed to these sets of ideas, these doctrines. And I have a PhD, some would say. So I'm just thankful to be in this space where I kind of get to go under the radar and discover things and then report about them to people who are busy. They're busy with raising kids and leading a family or being a pastor or whatever else they're doing. They don't necessarily have the space or the time to go back to school. But here I am able to use this position I'm in life to do some research for them. And I can say, here, just check this book out. Check this article out if you don't have time to read a book. It's only 20 pages, things like that. Check this podcast out. I vetted it. It's incredible. Listen, study to show yourself approved, but here's a shortcut, so to speak. And that's been very rewarding. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned the 5 points of Calvinism. You have a song about that too called Scattered Tulips, right?
Yes.
Okay. So for people who don't know what the 5 points of Calvinism are, real quick, what is it?
So there's this acronym TULIP. So the T is total depravity, which is just talking about the human condition after Adam's sin. So it's saying we're all pretty whacked out. And then you have unconditional election, which I guess is just saying God doesn't choose us based on something we do. And then the L is limited atonement, which is their understanding of Jesus only dies for a small select of people. Then you have the I, which is irresistible grace, which is just their ideas of, you can't resist God's call. If he's calling you, you don't have a choice. And then the P would be the perseverance of the saints, which is their argument for you can never fall away. If God saved you, you can never apostatize. And, it's very neat, very logically consistent. They support each other very well. But in many ways, they're novel to the collective conscious of church history, some more than others. And, I heard someone say, if you have discovered a interpretation of scripture that has perhaps escaped the minds of men for 2,000 plus years, maybe you should abandon your interpretation, So I think in some ways there's some guilt there. Not all of it is bad, but in other ways, some of it is pretty novel. Yeah.
Well, that's some wise advice just in general for our day too. But yeah, so the tulip again is what Calvinism teaches. And if you want to look up the difference between Lutherans and Calvinism on those points, you can just look up your song Scattered Tulips. And I think you got some clarity there.
Thank
So
you. Yes.
yeah.
Good
Yeah.
question. Yep.
All right. So Flame, you go to a Lutheran church down in Tampa. I'm guessing, I don't know. I'm guessing some of the songs that you sing in church, hymns written, sometime 1700s ish. So we're thinking like Bach, kind of style music.
Yeah.
People might not be used to hearing rap or hip hop with lyrics that are so theologically deep and also Lutheran,
Yeah.
especially with your latest album. So how has your just particular art form been able to reach those who maybe might not otherwise be reached by the style that Bach has?
Yeah. Great question. I do think that hip hop or rap music primarily should be used outside of the local church context. I mean, I've seen some creative efforts at people remixing old hymns, and then they'll, throw in maybe like a rap verse to kind of, I don't know, modernize it, make it contemporary. It's okay. Like I give them an E for effort, but it's kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of weird. So I personally feel like rap music is better served if you use it just in, your everyday life, entertainment value, or to sort of catechize, in my context. So the way I'm using it is, it's just a way to do that. And for people that don't have any interest in classical music or, hymns or anything of that nature, rap music is very on the ground and it meets you where you are. And I love the nature of it too. The expectation in rap music is for you to be blunt, be black and white, in your face. This is what I believe. I don't care what you think about it. I don't care how disrespectful it's perceived. I'm just going to tell you my raw thoughts on whatever this topic is. And I love that because, in some sense, because the gospel is similar in that it's black and white, exclusive. There's only one way to heaven, it's through the Son. So it pairs well. And I think people that have that expectation in themselves already from subscribing to rap music, Christian rap comes in with that same intensity, that same boldness, and people respect it. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you believe. Why do you believe that? So if you're sort of, kind of hiding your message, covert with it in a rap mind, you don't really get a lot of respect for that because people feel like you have something to hide. You're afraid of what you really think. So it really works well for people who are in that space, and that's how they enjoy their music. Yep.
Well, in fact, so my husband's a pastor, and he has fellow friends who are pastors who actually use your songs, and no joke, to catechize. So they kind of like weave some of your songs into their catechism confirmation classes.
Nice.
And have been used exactly for that use. So awesome job, Flame, with that. Keep producing your music that we can use in confirmation class.
Thank you. Yeah.
So coming for full circle here with vocation, how would you say that the Lutheran doctrine of vocation just kind of kicks the door wide open to possibilities for people finding creative ways to use their unique passions, their unique talents, their gifts to further the kingdom of God?
Yes, great question. I feel like so Jesus made a statement. He says that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. I think there's a sense in which the doctrine of vocation will supply more laborers. Right now, I think a lot of Christians are preoccupied, busy with, this internal focus. They're burdened by their sins. They're burdened by, trying to find some greater measure of affections for God. And they don't have a lot of space to be creative, to think of ways that they can, contribute good around them for the people right in their faces. So to me, the doctrine of vocation lifts people off of the ladder that they're climbing up to heaven by trying to keep the law perfectly. So it takes them off of that ladder and it puts them back on the earth, and it says, hey, you can do regular stuff for people and you can have fun and be creative doing it, and God will be happy with whatever you're doing. If you're serving food, just imagine someone comes in, I don't know, off the streets, they're having a rough day, and you serve them well with a smile, good service. You've given them a break, a space in their day where something went right, where they can breathe, and you help them along the way as God's hands and his feet. So he's using you, where God is sort of hidden or masked from people. You are there functioning as his hands and his feet in whatever you are doing. And that brings you joy and comfort. You feel like, man, I'm being used by God. This is exciting. And it enlivens you and it makes you want to do more. And then I think when you have that type of freedom, you're more creative. And as an artist, that means a lot to me because I know how difficult it is to create when you're burdened, when you're consumed by something else. But when you're free, ideas come out of nowhere, and then you just get the painting all over the place. So I think that's what the doctrine of vocation does, among other things. Yep.
It's for freedom that Christ has set us free. And
Yes.
again, thank you, Luther, for just kind of drawing us back to scripture and the freedom that the gospel provides because, wow. Yeah. Lifting us off the ladder. That's a great quote. Flame, how can people connect their passion then to Christ's mission?
Yes. So to me, the way you can connect your passion to Christ's mission is re-understand Christ's mission. So one, ultimately, Jesus's mission is to bring forgiveness. He wants to free us, right? So he wants us to be fully who he's intended us to be. So God created us as humans. We're a part of his creation. He put us in his creation. Creation is good. So he wants us to enjoy this life, but he wants us to do it from the most free place. And that ultimately is in being made right with God. So that's one. So if you can understand that about Jesus and then understand he's into creating that same freedom for others through us. So if you look at yourself as being on mission with Christ, a co-laborer even with Christ and with others, and lifting the burdens and bringing joy and relief, you'll have such a deep sense of connectivity with Jesus's mission. Even when life is difficult, you'll find a sense of purpose way down there in those struggles. Those struggles will make sense on earth because what is producing in you, that character, that perseverance, that endurance, is producing in you on the ground things that you can use on the ground with other people as you're also growing yourself, connected to Jesus's ultimate goals. So for me, it just makes sense in your suffering, in your lows, and in your highs. And I think that sense of identity and purpose is what drives us to not tap out and feel mentally exhausted where we want to give up because we're so rooted in some identity, some purpose and meaning that not only lasts now, but will ring throughout all eternity. Yeah, it just energizes you. And I feel like I'm experiencing that right now. Yeah.
Man, well, I just, that leads me, I guess, to my next thought, because this is a, pro-life, for life, life-affirming podcast through life ministry. And as part of, the doctrine of vocation, we would say is completely pro-life because it teaches that everyone has a role within the body of Christ and everyone has a role within the church's mission. So I guess then what would you say to those who don't feel like maybe one, they don't have the talents or the gifts that they would want to possess to glorify God, or they're not able to in a way. Maybe they're bound by some kind of disease or illness that prohibits them from serving fully in the capacity that they would desire to. So I guess then in summary, how would you encourage these people in their vocation as is, where God has placed them now to still find ways to serve and to be involved?
Wow, that is a great question. Specifically because that's a temptation for all of us. And it's always been a temptation for Christians. I think about in the Church of Corinth, where speaking in tongues was the flashy gift. It was the celebrity gift, if you will. And everybody wanted it. Everybody wanted to be able to speak in another language supernaturally. It was kind of cool, but it created a mess. It was just wreaking havoc in this city. It was so much jealousy and division happening, and Paul had to come in and reframe for them God's value system for your gifts and your talents. He's like, look, the Holy Spirit gives gifts. He distributes them as he sees fit. In fact, I would prefer that you would prophesy and proclaim the message rather than this gift that you all are sort of coveting or jealous over. And, I think we need that same message today. There may be areas that we all wish we could serve in where people may get more praise or accolades or acknowledgement for something that they do. That would be kind of cool. I get that temptation, especially as an artist. Being an artist is kind of like high school. It's like a popularity contest, and everybody wants to be cooler, more successful, more streams, more record sales, more accolades. So I understand that temptation. But to realize that God's value system is different, and it flips that on its head. And it says, wherever you are, if you're laying in a hospital bed and you are unable to be mobile, the joy of this message frees you to say, right where you are, just being in that bed as a representation of someone who loves Jesus, who is suffering in a way that reflects assurance of salvation and the comfort that the gospel brings. You're doing your vocation right there. And every nurse, every physician that comes in a room that can engage you in conversation is benefiting from the role, the space that you're in right now. God is smiling on you in that position. That makes you feel like, I want to do that the next day. What can I say to the next nurse? What can I say that lifts up, the next physician that comes in the room? Now you have a sense of identity and purpose in that space. And every human being, every Christian can find those types of things wherever they are. If you're a mom, you can celebrate doing that with your children. If you're an artist, if you're, a president of a seminary that feels like, man, I want to be out in the public square making an impact in politics. And here I am stuck in a seminary talking to Christians all day. They can reorient that and say, you know what? I'm shaping the minds through my good administrative skills, and causing the next generation to alleviate burdens in the world in a position I'm in. So everyone can take a deep breath, hit reset, and understand that we're all connected to God's goal in Christ as we're serving in these varying areas for the benefit of those around us, and let that bring joy to you.
I mean, you could define vocation just by your last sentence there. Serve your neighbors in your given areas and let it bring you joy. I mean,
yeah.
Well said. Very well said.
Awesome.
Flame, thanks so much for joining us to talk about vocation. Before I let you go, I just have this burning question. What is your favorite song you've put out?
Ooh, favorite song. Okay. All right. Let me think. So that's sort of like asking a parent.
Sorry, I don't know, because I'm not an artist, so I have no idea.
I had to pick my favorite kid. Let me see. Which one would I save if they were both drowning? Let me see. Wow. Okay. Wow. I think I'll just go with the one that has the most replay value right now. It's probably going to be Christ for You, which is, the track title Christ for You from Christ for You, the EP. I love the melody. I love the structure of the song, and then I love the cadence. So it's super catchy. And then obviously I love the content that just reminds me that God comes down to us. We don't have to climb the ladder to him. He comes down to us. He dines with us. He forgives us, and he frees us to serve others. So that song really, it's getting a lot of replay value right now.
Okay, so now we know that if all your songs were drowning at once, you would save Christ for You first.
I would save Christ. I'm sorry, other songs.
Thanks for choosing one for me.
Yes, that was hard.
Man. So you've mentioned the 4 projects you're working on this year. What do you have coming out?
Okay, so I released 4 last year.
Oh, got it. Okay.
What I'm working on now is, I'll give you some exclusive. Right now I'm working on, and an EP on baptism.
Ooh.
So this is called the Extra Notes series. So this is a series where I'm breaking down Lutheran thought, ancient Christian thought. So I gave you extra notes, so the justification by faith and kind of contrasting Lutheranism and Calvinism, Christ for you, Lord's Supper, next up the bat, baptism.
Awesome. I mean, like, when can we expect this, you think?
I am pushing for more exclusive. I have not, told anyone this.
Okay.
I am pushing for the top of 2022. Yes.
I can't wait.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Where can our listeners find your music?
My music is wherever music is sold. So if it's streaming all over Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, what else is out there? All the above. And also you can go to clearsightmusic.com. That's clearsight, SIGHT, music.com. And you can have access to all of my YouTube videos, podcasts, merchandise, all of that stuff. Yep.
Awesome. Flame, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, agree. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a review. And don't forget to click the follow or subscribe button on your app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. New episodes drop the second and fourth Fridays of every month. And finally, listeners, we want to hear from you. So do you have an idea about a guest you'd like to hear from or a topic you want to talk about? Email us at friendsforlife@lcms.org. We want to hear from you about what you want to hear about when it comes to issues of life.
Thanks for joining us. Friends for Life is a podcast that introduces listeners to life issues by introducing them to friends who stand for life.